Hey there friends, and welcome to episode 2 of LOD, a mini-series where I check out and critique old forgotten redstone contraptions that I made back when I was still known as LookOverDare or LOD. In this installment, I have for you not one but two contraptions. These machines in front of you are my fast and compact dustless mud converters. The one on the left was released back in August 13, 2022, and it can convert 60,000 mud blocks per hour. The other one is a faster 72,000 per hour mud converter that was released on August 25, a bit less than 2 weeks after the first one. Before we look at how the contraptions work, let me first show you how to actually use them, starting with the 60k converter. The first thing that you'll have to do is to add dirt into all of these chests and grab a stack for yourself. Then you can make your way inside and turn the converter on with this lever. Next, aim it where the emerald block is, and if you have carpet mod installed, you can use the /player use interval 1 command. Alternatively, an external auto clicker would also work, but it's less reliable as you're subject to client-side lag and latency. Another option is to go to Controls, Keybinds, and bind the Use Item Action key to any key on your keyboard. Now, you can hold down the newly binded key to place every game tick. While not a very elegant solution, you can place an object on the key to keep it down for an AFK session. Using the 72k converter is a very similar process. Start by adding dirt into these chests, and then you can turn the converter on with this lever. Next, make your way inside and aim at where the emerald block is. And finally, you can use the /player use interval 1 command to start converting dirt. Unfortunately, the 72k converter only works with client-side auto-clicker like the carpet mod. For reasons unknown to me, using the keybind trick from earlier will not work, and by extension, I would also assume that an auto-clicker program wouldn't work either. Now that I have gone over how to use both converters, it's time to get technical and look at how they work. I'll start with the 60k version because the 72k converter was heavily based on the design choices made in this one. This contraption can be divided into 4 parts: the pushers, the conversion units, the TNT Blast Chamber, and the dirt resupplying system. For better visibility, here's a quick and crude rewiring of the pushers. There are 5 pistons in total and they're all firing every 6 game tick, which means that we're converting 5 blocks every 6 game tick or 60,000 blocks every hour. For this to work, the pistons must either be 0 ticked or power with a 1 game tick pulse, the latter of which was what I used because it's much simpler. The reason why the pistons can't be powered for longer than 1 game tick has to do with the fact that blocks can't be placed inside of an extended piston head. It's however possible for the player to place blocks when a piston is retracting, as the piston head no longer occupies that block. So, if we have a 2 game tick pulse for example, the piston will be extended for 2 game tick, which leaves the player with only 4 game ticks to place 4 blocks every 6 game tick instead of 5. The next part of the machine that we'll discuss is the conversion system, and to make it easier to see, I've copied over a single slice. When a block is pushed through the system, this observer will detect when the block moves, and it'll power this dropper to dispense a water bottle into this dispenser, which would in turn dispense a water bottle to convert a dirt block on top into mud. Afterwards, the hopper minecart underneath would take out the empty bottle, which would then go into one of these 2 hoppers before being deposited into this dispenser. We need 2 hoppers here because a single hopper has an 8 game tick cooldown and will be unable to keep up with the 6 game tick cycle of the machine. This dispenser here is powered by this observer whenever the block stream move. And when that happens, it'll refill a glass bottle that'll be collected by the hopper minecart below. The water bottle will then go into the hoppers and be deposited into this dropper. The dropper and all of these other ones are part of a dropper elevator that'll bring the water bottle back up to the top dispenser, and just like everything else, they're only powered when an observer detects the block stream moving. Now, I want to direct your attention back to this area right here. You may have noticed the strange manner in which the hoppers and dispensers are filled. The hopper minecart must be filled exactly like this to only allow it to take glass bottle from the dispenser above and not water bottles. Similarly, the hoppers and dispenser must be completely full to stop them from pulling glass bottles from the hopper minecart. It's essentially an unconventional item filter. To demonstrate, I'll take some glass bottles from this dispenser. You see that the hoppers are now depositing glass bottles into this dispenser, which in turn causes them to take out glass bottles from the hopper minecart. With the glass bottles gone, the hopper minecart now has room to take water bottles from the dispenser above, which is not what we want. Another thing that you'll likely notice is the unusual hopper minecart alignment, which allows both hoppers to take items from it. Admittedly, the trial and error process of figuring out a minecart alignment that works ended up taking way longer than it should have back when I was designing this machine. There was even a point in time when I thought it was impossible, but I did eventually accomplish what I set out to do. And here's how to do the alignment. First thing first, you'll want to place 3 sea pickles on top of this hopper. Next, create a slanted rail that goes into the hopper like this and place the hopper minecart on top, which should roll against the sea pickles. Afterwards, you'll need to equip the sea pickle in your offhand and get yourself a pickaxe with at least efficiency 4 to instant mine the rail. With this setup, you should be able to break this rail and instantly place a sea pickle underneath before the minecart falls. It could take several tries, so you can simply repeat the process if you couldn't get the sea pickle down before the minecart lands. If aligned properly, these 2 hoppers should be able to take items from the hopper minecart. The third part of the machine is the TNT Blast Chamber. Here the block stream is split into 2 streams and pushed down. A TNT will then explode between both block streams during B36 to ensure that all blocks are destroyed. If you don't know what B36 is, it essentially refers to moving blocks. The interesting thing about B36 is that they have a really low blast resistance, which allows more blocks to be blown up. It's also the reason why you can blow up ancient debris by moving them at the time of explosion. Alright, so back to our machine. I've also made a simpler and cheaper blast chamber, although its exposed nature does mean that there can't be fragile blocks near it. Finally, we have the dirt resupplying system to keep the player stocked with dirt, and it's simply a series of 5 droppers that dispense every time it attacks blocks moving. The dispensed dirt would make its way to the player via this water stream. As for the storage, I ended up just using chest columns because it makes the contraption looks more compact, and honestly, it's best to use double hopper speed sugar box unloaders instead. And that's all there is to know about the 60k converter. It's quite simple and very compact for its speed. So let us move to the faster 72k design. As I've mentioned earlier, the 72k converter was heavily based on the 60k design, which is why they look so similar. And like the 60k converter, this can also be divided into 4 parts: the pushers, the conversion units, the blast chamber, and the dirt resupplying system. Starting with the pushers, they're pretty different from the ones in the 60k design. We're only using 4 pistons instead of 5 because it's much easier and cheaper to 0-tick 4 pistons every 4 game tick as compared to 0-ticking 5 pistons every 5 game tick. All we need to do is use a simple slime observer bar system like the one here. Unlike the 60k converter, however, these pistons can't be powered with a 1 game tick pulse because we can't ever have the piston head in extension if we want to place blocks every game tick. If you're unfamiliar with 0-ticking, the piston is essentially extending and retracting within the same game tick, which is why this piston can instantly retract the block in front of it. This means that by 0-ticking the pistons, we'll always be able to place down a block every game tick. The other major difference with the pushers is the fact that it goes up before being pushed horizontally. The reason for this has to do with how dispensers work. When you power a dispenser or a dropper, it actually takes 4 game tick for it to dispense its content rather than doing so immediately. If we go back to the 60k converter for a bit, the dispenser is powered by an observer that detects the blocks moving, and the 6 game tick block stream gives it just enough time for the dispenser to convert the dirt before it moves away. On the other hand, doing the same thing with a 4 game tick stream won't work because the observer would delay the dispenser long enough for it to dispense after the dirt has already moved. It is possible for the horizontal pushers to work if you power the dispenser in the same game tick that the blocks move as shown here. However, I simply couldn't think of a way to make this tileable, so my solution was to push the block twice, which allows me to detect the first block stream and create enough delay for the dispenser to convert the dirt before it moves. Hey, it's me from the future. After recording my voiceover, I decided to try making a tileable setup that would work, and I came up with this after about 15 or so minutes of messing around with different concepts. It's much simpler than what I had before, but anyways, let's get back to the video. Next, we have the conversion system, and there's not much to talk about here because it's pretty much the same as the other design. It's just wired slightly differently. With that said, there are two things that I want to talk about. The first one is this hopper minecart that's not found in the 60k converter. The minecart's alignments allow these two hoppers to collect items from it, and it's high enough to also take empty glass bottles from the dispenser above. For the minecart alignment, you must use powered rails and not the other type. First, create two slanted rails like so and place a temporary full block above the first one. Next, put down the hopper minecart and push it forward by walking into the full block. Finally, break the temporary block. If done correctly, the hopper minecart's hitbox should slightly be inside of the hopper, and it should be able to take items from containers one block above it, as well as allow these two hoppers to collect items from it. The second thing that I want to talk about is explaining how this dispenser is powered. This part of the video is meant to be educational for fairly new or intermediate redstoners. So if you're an advanced player or are simply uninterested in how it works, feel free to skip ahead using the chapters provided. Alright, let us check out how it works. When you have a dispenser like this, it would depower when this blocks move, and be powered again once a new block arrives. In the contraption, however, I needed a way to power this other dispenser as well, which gave me the idea to detect when this hopper unlocks with an observer. So, the repeater must be moved up by a block rather than directly powering the dispenser. The setup would still power the dispenser because of quasi-connectivity and piston update order. When blocks are pushed by a piston, the furthest block moves first, followed by the second furthest, and so on, and this all happens within the same game tick. To demonstrate, I am going to simulate piston update order using colored concrete. The first block to move here is the block that's quasi-powering the dispenser, but it doesn't know that it has been depowered yet. Fortunately, the second block would follow suit to update the dispenser to depower. And when it arrives at its new spot, the block would quasi-power the dispenser again. Finally, the last block would move and arrive next to the dispenser to tell it, hey, you're powered again. Because this setup relies on piston update order, it won't actually work when the blocks are being pushed downwards. When pushing the blocks downward, the block next to the dispenser moves before the blocks that's quasi-powering it. So the dispenser still thinks that it's being powered, even after the quasi-power block moves. It only realizes that it's no longer powered when the block that was initially powering it arrived next to it. When the third block moves and finally arrives to quasi-power it again, there won't be any block left to update it, which is why I must update it to get it to dispense. Well, that was a bit of an educational segment there, and hopefully at least one person found it helpful. Now, let's get back to the mud converter. The blast chamber for the 72k converter is pretty much the same as the 60k one, and I've also made a cheaper blast chamber for it as well. The only two differences are that the TNT explodes more frequently to handle the faster block stream, and we're zero-ticking the splitter pistons. Looking back, I'm not sure why I chose to split the block stream here because it's just much simpler and cheaper to push down a 2-wide block stream like this, but I digress. Last but not least, the dirt resupplying system works exactly the same as the 60k converter. There's just one less dispenser to match the 4 piston pushes of this design. And that's about all there is to discuss for these two mud converters. So, for my final thoughts, frankly, I'm not all that happy with these two designs because of the number of hoppers and hopper minecarts used. It's also really annoying to pre-fill each one with glass bottles and to align the minecarts. Ironically, however, I am quite proud of the two hopper minecart alignments that I've shown because it could come in handy for some other projects. Personally, I advise against building these two contraptions, but all is not lost if you're looking for a fast mud converter. I recently saw a really simple and compact design by I Hate Falling Blocks, and it's much better than what I have. As of writing this script, the converter is still a work in progress, but I'm sure they'll release it on their channel once it's finished. With all of that said and done, we have come to the end of the video. And if you're still here, thank you so much for sticking around. I really hope you enjoyed the video, stay safe, take care, and as always, have a good one.